From the time that we first dream about becoming a Major League Baseball player until the time that we finally retire, we are always looking for any advantage that we can achieve to become better players. As we have seen, attempting illegal ways to enhance performance never go unpunished or undetected. I stress to kids all the time, not to take the easy way out, but to find just ways to gain an advantage. What I have found is that nothing replaces hard work and knowledge. I fulfilled my dream of becoming a Major League Baseball player, not because I was the most talented player, but because I listened to those before me with the expertise to give insight on how to maximize my performance. Vision has always been at the forefront of my thoughts because I was extremely nearsighted. I met Dr. Toyos, a LASIK surgeon who has been the team ophthalmologist for several professional teams and president of the Sports Ophthalmology Society, and decided to let him perform my LASIK surgery. LASIK surgery improved my vision so I could play without glasses. Dr. Toyos and I began talking about vision in baseball at each visit. As a former athlete himself, I became comfortable and realized that he had studied many different aspects of improving player performance through knowledge of vision and vision training. His ideas had helped other players and then helped me. Over the years, with my knowledge, access to the greatest players on earth, and with the close relationship with Dr. Toyos, we were able to put all these ideas into a video that could help players gain an advantage and excel to their full potential. So knowledge, passion, and hard work are the keys to success, whether you're a little leaguer or a professional athlete. So we want you to soak up the knowledge in this video, implement the ideas, and work hard with the training exercises. So let's begin.
And now, Vision of Baseball with your host, Christy D. Bernardi.
How important is vision in sports? Better yet, how important is vision in baseball? We're here today to talk to two gentlemen that are going to give us some insight on that very subject. First is Jason Phillips, who's had a 10-year Major League career with the Toronto Blue Jays, LA Dodgers, and New York Mets. He's also working most recently with the Seattle Mariners on his coaching career. Then we have Dr. Toyos, who's a LASIK eye surgeon who's performed surgery on many professional athletes, both in the NBA and the Major Leagues. He's also the president of the Sports Ophthalmology Society of America. I love baseball, always been a fanatic, and I'm really excited to be here with these guys today to talk about vision in sports.
And I'm excited too that this has finally come together. One interesting thing is I did perform LASIK on Jason. I've had many athletes come in and I've always talked to them about vision and their sport and how I thought that they can improve their sport through the knowledge of vision. The one athlete that would sit down and actually talk to me a little bit about their sport and give me information when there was feedback back and forth was Jason. With the Sports Ophthalmology Society, we do these lectures where we bring in other doctors and we kind of train them on how to treat professional athletes and how to improve performance through improving vision. And one of the lectures that I've been giving is a vision in baseball lecture. And I use some of the information that I learned from Jason and the information that I knew from being an ophthalmologist and my own personal information from being a former athlete and being a coach in the college and the high school level. And I put it all together into a lecture called Vision in Baseball, which was accepted very well by other doctors. And I'd always have other ophthalmologists come up to me and go, "Oh, that was like some really good information. I can't wait to talk to the baseball players that I have, little leaguers, and all these different people that are interested in baseball and tell them all this information so that they can improve performance." And that's all it's about right now, is improving performance. So we had an era where athletes were trying to improve performance by taking certain medications and drugs. And what I tell athletes is, you know, what's more important than doing that stuff that's illegal is just getting a knowledge of how your vision can make things better for you. So that's what we want to accomplish with this video, is getting that information that I do use in vision in baseball, having Jason here to talk about being a Major League Baseball player and how he's used some visual knowledge to improve his game, and now as a coach he's imparting that knowledge to young players so that they can improve.
Yeah, definitely. That was the biggest thing that I had when I went to Dr. Toyos. Is I was very skeptical. First and foremost, I used to wear glasses, and Christy actually was kind of giving me a little shot here and there about.
Yeah, I remember being at a game one time, and my friends and I are in the stands, and we're looking out on the field, and we're like, look at that guy with the big thick glasses. I mean, do they wear those in the?
Is he going to work on the computer, or is he going to play?
Is he playing ball, or? But then you stepped up to the plate, and I think you hit a double at that time. And we were kind of like, wow, who is this guy?
Yeah, well, those were a necessity for me because I was extremely nearsighted, and I had trouble with contacts. And for many years, I was skeptical about the LASIK surgery. Anything around my eyes, because for baseball players. In particular for professional baseball players, our eyes are, that's number one. If you can't see the ball, you can't hit it, you can't catch it. So,
right.
I was nearsighted and depended on my glasses, for my life, basically, my livelihood. The glasses part, I was stuck using them. They weren't the most fashionable, and
yeah.
Obviously got a lot of laughs from fans and some ragging, but.
So would you say it's a big difference going from the glasses now to not even having to worry about that or contacts or anything?
Most definitely. Now the only thing I worry about is keeping my eyes lubricated so that I don't have to blink so much and things like that. But it's definitely an advantage. The glasses, I had to use my back eye, which was my dominant eye when I was hitting, and there was always a little, with the glasses in between my eyes, and have to make sure my head, I couldn't see balls. Peripheral was a little. I didn't have as good a peripheral vision as I do now.
Yeah, and one thing that people don't talk about when people who are nearsighted wear glasses is that glasses will actually minify what you're looking at. So when you're nearsighted and you're wearing glasses, you're seeing the world a lot smaller than what the world actually is. The perfect example I always give of that is that Tiger Woods was a -10 nearsighted patient. That just says that he was really, really nearsighted. And one of the things that he said after he had his LASIK procedure is that things seem so much bigger to him. And that's because when you are wearing glasses, if you take somebody's glasses who are nearsighted and you hold it up in front of the newspaper, all the words will look a little bit smaller. And it's like taking somebody who's farsighted and taking their glasses and putting them up to the newspaper. That'll magnify everything. So one of the things that I tell baseball players like Jason is there's going to be an advantage immediately after we do the LASIK procedure because things are going to seem just a little bit bigger than what you're used to seeing. And that's one of the things that we saw with Jason. One of the things that he remarked about along with the other baseball players is that things seem a little bit bigger now to them when they're up to the plate.
So a baseball player walks into your office. What do you think is the most important thing to let them know before they actually have the surgery?
Well, some of the things I talk to them in terms of vision is I break it down into 3 basics. And the first basic is, what is your vision? With glasses, contacts, post-LASIK, what can you actually see? And that's the vision that everybody talks about when they say 20/20 vision and 20/15. And to have some kind of knowledge of that, all 20/20 vision means is that at 20 feet you can see what a normal person can see at 20 feet. And then if you're better and the best that you can have is 20/10 vision, that means it takes somebody to go up 10 feet to see what you could see at 20 feet. So if you're 20/10, you could see smaller and smaller letters at 20 feet. If you're 2100, that means that the letters have to be bigger and bigger for you actually to see them at 20 feet. Now, what we were trying to do is figure out a way that we can get a estimate of what somebody's vision is so that somebody watching this video at home can go, oh, my vision is 20/20, my vision is 20/30, and so on. So what we did is, when I was in training, we used to carry these cards around in our pocket, and if we wanted to know somebody's vision at the bed, we'd pull these cards out. And these cards, if you hold them at 10 feet, and then cover one eye, and then you can see what letters you can see. Will give you an estimate of what your vision really is. And then you cover the other eye and you can do the same thing. Now, what we're going to do is, this is in the back of your video cassette in the panel, and you can just take this and test yourself and see what your vision is. And that's where you start. So some people realize that, you know, when they cover one eye, they go, oh, I'm not really seeing as well in one eye than I thought I was. And I've actually had athletes that have come in and never really had a great eye exam and find out that one eye isn't seeing 20/20. That one eye is seeing
20/20 being perfect?
Perfect, being what they should be seeing like a normal person. So you have I had one athlete, baseball player that came in, and actually he in one eye was seeing 2100. So, and he never realized that till he came in and got an exam. So you have to start at the basics. You have to be seeing in both eyes to play baseball 20/20, and if you're not, then that can hamper you. And if you do this test and it turns out that you're not seeing 20/20, and this is just kind of a screening test, if you're not seeing 20/20, then you should go see a doctor. And my recommendation is, before you start, you should really go see your eye doctor just to kind of get an idea of what your vision is. Now, one of the things that people don't realize is that's not actually the most important thing to test, and the most important thing you need to be able to hit a baseball. There's actually something more important, and that's being able to see a moving object and being able to pick out a moving object and see that in your brain and process that in your brain. And what that's called, and that's my second point, that's called dynamic visual acuity.
Dynamic visual acuity. Can you explain that?
Yeah, and it's not a term that I would say 99% of people have ever heard of. It's not even a term that really eye doctors and ophthalmologists and surgeons really use, but it's a term that's been around even back in the 50s, and it's a term that's been around in professional baseball way back in the 50s. And what dynamic visual acuity is being able to see a moving object, how fast that moving object is going, what trajectory that moving object is going, what angle it started in, and what angle it finished. So Jason can tell you that what you're trying to do as a hitter is, when a pitcher throws the ball, is try to tell where that ball is going to go, how fast that ball is going to go, what angle that ball is going at, and then be able to swing and hit it. And that's dynamic visual acuity. In the 50s, for them to measure dynamic visual acuity, what they used to do is they'd take a record player, and for the young baseball players out there, you probably don't know what a record player is, but a record player is, there used to be these things called records instead of CDs and iPod that you'd throw on, and those things would revolve on a record player, and then you put a needle and then you'd hear the music. Well, in a standard record player, there used to be different speeds that you can play a record. So for, you know, a small album, that would be a different speed than a large album. So how they decided that they were going to measure dynamic visual acuity in baseball players way back in the 50s is they would put a record on a record player and then vary the speed. And what they found is at 30 revolutions per minute, most baseball players could look down at the record player and be able to tell the name of the record with this thing spinning at 33 revolutions per minute. Now, what one baseball player was able to do, and this is all, you know, that this goes in the is this a true story or is this not a true story? But people talk about it all the time. The best hitter at the time in the 50s was a guy named Ted Williams, and they said that Ted Williams, you could put the record at 90 revolutions per minute. At whatever record, and he could still see the name of that record.
That's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. Now, to bring that back into the baseball world, when a pitcher throws a pitch, the ball will revolve and go at about 1,000 to 2,000 revolutions per minute. So baseball players and major leaguers especially, who have the ability to tell spin on balls, they're seeing balls that are spinning at a very, very fast rate and being able to tell what that spin is. So that's dynamic visual acuity.
Okay, so then what would you say the third thing is?
And then the third thing is really important when it comes to baseball, and that's eye dominance. Just like we have a dominant hand, a right hand or left hand that we reach for a bottle of water or we brush our teeth with, it's the same with eye dominance. It's something that's developed really early on in your development, and it's something that you can't change. I've worked with baseball players in the past trying to change their dominance to improve the sight that they're getting when a pitch is being thrown to them, and it doesn't work. You can't change dominance. It's wired in your brain. So an easy way to tell which eye is dominant in you is to just, let's say we're going to do this together.
Okay.
So just point at an object far away from you. So we're pointing at an object. Now what I want you to do is I want you to cover your left eye first.
Okay.
Okay, so in most people, they're right eye dominant, so you should still be pointing at the object.
Yes, still pointing.
Okay, now cover your right eye now. Now if it seems like your hand is moved,
yes,
or the object is
definitely moved,
then that means that's your non-dominant eye.
Okay.
So like I said before, most people are right eye dominant. Now when it comes to baseball, that could be something that helps you, or that could be something that hinders you. For example, like a right-handed hitter that is facing the plate, their non-dominant eye is the first thing that's their first eye that's going to see a ball coming at them. So in a right-handed pitcher, when a right-handed pitcher is throwing a ball from here, this non-dominant eye is the first thing that picks up that ball. Now it's 60 feet from the pitcher's mound to the plate. And we've determined by looking at video that at 20 feet from the plate, when the ball gets at 20 feet, the batter has decided whether they're going to swing or not. And what happens with the eyes is they no longer are looking at the ball once they've made the decision that they're going to swing. Their eyes actually move to the place where they think the ball is going to be at. So that last 20 feet, they're not really looking at the ball. So now you're cutting down that 60 feet into just 40 feet. So now they have 40 feet to decide if a pitch is good and if they're going to swing, and the angle and the trajectory and the spin and all that stuff. So now it's the first 40 feet. Now just think the first 20 feet or 10 feet or 5 feet is going to be seen by their non-dominant eye, and their non-dominant eye isn't their strongest eye. Their strongest eye is their dominant eye. And so now they're going to be making decisions on a pitch in the first part with their
based on that
non-dominant eye, which isn't their strongest eye. So one of the things that we said is, oh, wouldn't that be great if a right-handed hitter, if we can change their dominance and make their left eye dominant, so from beginning to end, a pitch will come in and then they're seeing it with their stronger eye. But you can't change dominance. And there was a great study where they looked at college baseball players and some professional baseball players, and they looked at batting averages and they looked at eye dominance. And what they found was right-handed hitters that were left eye dominant, which isn't the norm, had better batting averages than right-handed hitters who were right eye dominant.
Interesting.
So one of the things that Jason and I talk about, wouldn't it be great if he was a left-handed hitter? Because then he'd have his dominant eye seeing the pitch from beginning to end. Another study has shown that left-handed hitters have better batting averages than right-handed hitters. So you're going, wow, why do left-handed hitters have an advantage? And there's all sorts of weird theories about that, like they're saying that the fences are closer in for a left-handed hitter so they can hit more home runs, or that a left-handed hitter is closer to first base So maybe they get that extra step advantage right in the first place.
Wow.
But it sounds fishy and doesn't really sound like a scientific way to show why left-handed hitter has an advantage. But most left-handed hitters are right-eye dominant, because most people are right-eye dominant. So they have that advantage of being able to see the ball from the time it leaves the pitcher's hand all the way till it gets to home plate. And then we get into, why do right-handed hitters hit left-handed pitchers better than right-handed pitchers? So that same example I was giving before is a right-handed hitter is up, a right-handed pitcher is pitching the ball from here, so they're seeing the pitch with their non-dominant eye and then to their dominant eye and then making a decision and swinging. On a left-handed pitcher, now that angle is no longer there. Now they can actually see the ball with their dominant eye from the time it leaves the pitcher's hand all the way till it gets to home plate. So what would be very interesting to do is, could we predict who are going to be the best hitters by seeing which, if they're right-handed or left-handed, if they're swinging right-handed or left-handed, and which eye is dominant. Or if you're a very young player and you're watching this video and you figured out that you're right-eye dominant but you're right-handed, like Jason was saying, God, I wish I would have batted left. Maybe you could be that switch hitter and start practicing swing with your left, because you're going to be using your dominant eye from beginning to end.
Which is very valuable information, and I bet you didn't know this when you were younger and playing ball.
Right.
And had you known?
Well, that was, my dad actually figured that out, and my brother's a left-handed hitter.
Oh, okay.
But
there we
the
go.
problem, the thing is you don't usually find, I think you're more right-eye dominant if you're more right-handed, because more people are right-handed in the world. So, when you're talking, there's left-handed hitters, and the bottom hand when you're hitting is your lead hand, which needs to be stronger. And for right-handed throwers,
it's just natural,
your right arm is dominant, so it's a stronger arm, so it's a better swing, plus you're seeing with a dominant eye. So that's why you're seeing a lot of young kids now start to hit left-handed when they throw right-handed. You can play more positions on the field, and you're actually seeing the ball better when you're hitting, so there's an advantage to being a left-handed hitter when you throw right-handed. That's also why there's a minimal amount of players that actually throw left-handed but hit right-handed with the dominant arm and the dominant eye. So,
now
I wish I would have known that earlier.
Yeah, I know, right? But now we do. And now that we know the three main things that you tell players, when you actually step into the batter's box, what is it that you look at? Well,
that's the one thing that guys are always checking their vision. With the surroundings, the stadiums that you're playing in, what the weather is. Is it windy? Is it sunny out? Is it cold? All these things come into play, because you want to have you want to see the best when you step on the field. So what I would look at when I stepped into the box, well, I always started even before that. When I was sitting in the dugout, I'd always want to read the signs on the outfield wall, or beyond the stands and everything, to see, okay, can I focus on that? And with my glasses, I would always check that. I would constantly be, pulling them down.
Because it's like, if you could focus on that.
If I could focus quickly enough, with the ball, like you said, you got 40 feet. You've got, basically, to put in perspective, a blink of an eye. In a blink of an eye, at a pitch traveling 90 miles an hour, you have to decide whether you're going to swing at it, take it, watch it, hit it, whatever you want, and where it's going. Because the last 15 to 20 feet, you don't see it. You're relying totally on hand-eye coordination. So I would start in the dugout, see if I could read the outfield wall, the different letters, the signs, focus, all that stuff. And then when I stepped in the box, I would want to look at the pitcher's face. If I could make out the pitcher's face, then I knew the clarity was there and I was good. Now, obviously, being a catcher, now a coach, first base, you get a lot of interaction between players. Players that you play in high school with, college with, major leagues, Hall of Famers. Everybody has kind of the same thing, whether it be they're focusing on the hat, they want to see the label on the hat, or the face, the chest, where you're looking at for a pitch, whether it's a right-handed batter or a right-handed pitcher or a left-handed pitcher, all that stuff. But basically what it comes down to is you want to stay relaxed. The eye is a muscle, and like any muscle, the more you focus on something, the more it tenses up, The lactic acid's going to build up, and you want to stay relaxed, so you don't want to get tense. So the breathing is a big thing with a lot of players. They want to relax, deep breath, but focus on something once you see the clarity, and then allow a bigger area picture to slowly come into focus when that pitcher's getting ready to release the ball.
Now, weren't you telling me about one prospective Hall of Famer that will start out looking at the label on the pitcher's cap, and then when did they make that transition from looking at a pitcher's cap to looking at the ball?
Well, it kind of depends on if the pitcher's in the stretch, you know, with runners on base, or if the pitcher's in the windup, because you know, once they start moving, you kind of want to, eventually you want to, you know, the quicker you can pick up the ball, the easier it's going to be to pick up the seams, rotation, you know, you pick up the pitch, where it's going. So basically about the time they were getting ready to separate their hands and get ready to throw, then they would focus on a release point, which is, you know, if the guy's right-handed, he's throwing over here, or if he's a side armer throwing from the side, you know, which makes it more difficult because you don't see so many of those. You know, from a young age, most pitchers pitch over the top. You very rarely see somebody throwing from the side, you know, in Little League, Pony League, you know, high school, stuff like that. So obviously those are more, you know, specialized pitchers to come in and get you. Like you said, you know, you constantly see left-handed hitters, and they're facing left-handed pitchers maybe throwing from over here because it's a tougher angle. You got to turn the head more around, and it's harder for the depth perception to track balls. But it's
and I mention this all the time, is if you had to go up against a pitcher and they're just throwing the same type of pitch over and over from the same spot, you're eventually going to hit that, no matter if they're throwing 100 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour. And the whole pitching and hitting is all about deception. The question that I get is all the time is, well, does a curveball actually curve? Does a pitch, you know, stay here and then all of a sudden drop? Do pitches rise? When you get into the science and the vision of it, what the whole pitching and hitting experience is deception.
Disrupt the rhythm and timing of the hitter, and the hitter's trying to do the same with the pitcher, you know, to a lesser extent, but, you know,
trying to figure out what the
trying to
pitcher's
figure
gonna
out,
do.
you're looking for a spot, you're looking for a pitch, you say, okay, well, I'm looking in a certain area, you know, and there's your education, you know, before you step in the box. Everybody can hit a certain pitch once you get to the big leagues, because you've, you know, many years of hard work, taking advantage of videos like this, you know, utilizing the little things that are going to get you to the next level, you know, in whatever manner you can. And, you know, it's a matter of seeing the ball and hitting the ball for hitters, and for a pitcher to disrupt that rhythm and timing as a hitter. It's basically what you're trying to do. So you're trying to utilize your eyes, what you focus on, how quickly you can adjust to this ball moving.
What's really funny is that my last at-bat ever in high school was against a pitcher that Jason now is coaching with. And what was interesting about this pitcher was he could throw over 90 miles an hour
in high school.
Wow. Right.
But we would hit him all the time, and the reason being he wasn't a very good magician at the time, because he would throw that 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and we all knew it was coming, and he had one other pitch that was slower than 90 miles an hour to try to disrupt us, but there was a lot of things in his mechanics, the way he was holding the ball, the angle of his arm coming, that would give that pitch. Yeah, so that pitch, he was giving away that pitch, and then he had to go to a coach. You know, the pro scouts saw him, they said, wow, this guy can throw 90 miles an hour. All we have to do is just teach him the magic of throwing off.
Of being the magician.
Of being the magician.
Right?
And that's the thing. Now, the question that you asked earlier, do pitches move? All pitches move. Because essentially there's a force, and that force is gravity, and that same force is what keeps us on the ground and what keeps us from not flying away into the atmosphere. So that ball that's being thrown is experiencing that same force. So the actual movement of every ball is eventually down. Now, if you throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, that ball is going to revolve at 1,200 revolutions per minute. And the trajectory and the speed of that is going to keep it up a little bit longer and not make it drop as far. So at a 95-mile-an-hour fastball overhand, it's going to drop about 1.5 feet. So from the time it's released up here to the time it goes down, it's going to be on a downward drop. Now, if you throw that same ball at 75 miles an hour and the revolutions per minute are much more, that causes more drag. So what happens is, since there's more drag on that ball, the force of gravity pushes the ball down even harder, and then that ball can drop anywhere to 3 to 5 feet. So the difference between the drop that you get on a fastball as opposed to a drop that you get on a off-speed pitch is much greater. So there's going to be more drop on a slower pitched ball. And that's kind of one of the deceptions. So you can see that it's very valuable for a player to be able to tell whether a pitcher is throwing a fastball as opposed to a pitcher throwing a curveball, a changeup, a slider, because there's more revolutions, it's slower, and it's going to move more.
And then that's where the seams of the ball come in, and there's where
you can actually see those after the ball leaves the pitcher's hand.
That's why vision is the most important part of being a baseball player.
So the pitcher's trying to deceive him, and he's trying to figure out that deception. So what I always do it is, when you see a guy doing card tricks, and he does some card trick, and you're going, wait, how did he do that? And then you're trying to figure out, and then you want to look at his hands and figure out what he's doing with his hands to do the trick.
It's exactly the same thing with baseball. It's very similar to a magician or a poker player. Little tells. You know, is the pitcher doing something different when he throws a curveball, or is he doing something different when he throws a changeup? Whether it be his facial expression. You know, some guys, when they're throwing an off-speed pitch, may stick the tongue out or bite down. You can see tension. You know, do something different in their mechanics. All these little things, because they're trying to manipulate the ball in a certain way so that the seams hit the air, like you said, cause more drag. You know, less rotation, spinning. You know, in the first 20 feet, you'll know, okay, is it a 2-seam fastball or is it a 4-seam fastball? Well, if it's a 4-seam fastball, meaning it's spinning with the 4 seams on the ball, it's going to have a straighter angle.
Well, let's show her all the different seams and all the different pitches.
I mean, as you see, you know, here's Major League Baseball, and you see the seams and all that. And when you're throwing a 4-seam fastball, you know, you're throwing the ball. And this is how position players want to throw the baseball, because it carries more. So it's a straighter, truer flight of the baseball. So when you're throwing it and it's releasing off your fingers, you see it's got all the 4 seams going straight. You know, as you're releasing it.
Hence the 4 seams.
Right. And that's when he said when you're throwing 95, it's actually getting a better whip off the 2 fingers, and it's actually staying straighter. So you see guys swing and miss, and they're like, how did I swing and miss? I thought I was right on that pitch. That's because your bat actually went under the ball. But if you're throwing 85, the ball drops a little and you hit it.
I see.
And then there's what's really interesting, and this comes into the science of it, they went to baseball players and they asked them what they see when they see a 4-seamed fastball coming at them. And what they see is, they don't see it, it's not going to be the naked eye where you can actually see the seams going slow motion.
Some red, wouldn't you?
They're going so fast that all you see is 2 little lines of red. So they can tell the difference between a 4-seam fastball and a 2-seam fastball. You want to show it.
Now when you see a 2-seam fastball, you're actually going to see it's going to be one of the lines, because you're throwing it like this. So when you're throwing it with the seams, the 2 seams, you'll actually see one red line, and it'll be kind of at an angle as it's coming in. Well, that's where the wind hits it, air, and makes it move. So you can see that, and then you know how to adjust your swing, if you're going to swing or not, if the thing's going to be a strike or a ball. In theory, obviously it's much tougher than that. But like you said, on a 4-seamer, you don't see anything. So you know that it's coming, you know, you'll see the lines on the side. And that's the same with, you know, breaking balls, sliders. You'll see a dot. Just because of the way the seams are, you know where that dot is as it's coming toward you. You know where it's going to break.
So they've taken baseball players and they've taken guys who are the same age and thrown pitches and asked them, you know, what do you think that pitch was? and what did you see? And it seems the better baseball players will have an image that's coming to them that they can actually define and say, yes, I saw 2 little red lines, or I saw a little dot in the upper right-hand corner, or I saw 2 thick red lines. And that tells them one piece of information is speed and spin and what kind of pitch is coming at them. So if you can tell those things, then you're better able to prepare to figure out where the ball is going to be. And if you know these things beforehand, when you're practicing, you can start looking for these things. I think what burns me up the most in terms of all the sports is that you see players spending a lot of time on drills that aren't going to be very helpful for them, when they should be spending more time on drills that they can actually do and incorporate into their playing, and will make them better hitters, better visual, use their vision better.
When a game goes, it goes quicker. It's quicker than practice. It's quicker than, you know, going to the gym or wherever you want to go to get better. So you need to utilize all parts of your body to use it, especially eyes being the most important part of, you know, you can't play without your eyes for a baseball player.
Yeah.
So like one of the drills, and you know, I get players off of the normal drills that they do, is, you know, putting a ball on a tee and swinging. Now, granted you're doing your natural swing, but in terms of the visual experience for you, you're never going to have a ball sitting there and you're never looking at a ball and going like that.
In the game.
In the game, because what you're doing is at 20 feet, you decided where that ball is going to be and you're going to it. Another drill and this was done with me when I was, you know, putting a little ball on a tee, having somebody from the side throw you a ball and you hit it. We've all grown up having people do that for us, but it's a totally different visual experience, because now you're using both eyes to look at that, which you're not going to be doing when you're up and you're swinging. So
it has a lot more to do with timing too, right?
Timing, and all those things are when it comes to doing those drills, and I see players focusing in on doing, you know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of doing that kind of drill, when there's other drills that you can do that are actually visually better for you. One of the drills that I have players do is at 20 feet, you're going to make the decision on whether you're going to swing at a pitch or not. So one of the drills I have players do is I have them take some tape. I have them put the tape on the wall at 20 feet of where a good pitch would be coming from when it's coming to them. And then I tell them to stare at that spot and visualize a ball coming from that square. So that when they go, okay,
He's laughing. He's done
why are you laughing?
Yeah, they're all drills that we incorporate,
Yeah.
you know, but not on a wall, but that's what you're trying to visualize on the field. You know, when there's a big picture, and then everything minimizes as the pitcher throws the ball, because ultimately you want to focus on the ball and not, you know, the fans in the stands or the wall or anything else, but you want that whole broad picture to kind of keep everything out of focus, so that you can really break it down into one minimal area, like you said, you know, on a wall. But all that's incorporated, all these drills that you're going to utilize off the field to help you on the field.
So there, you're still doing your same drill of swinging, the same thing that you would incorporate in a tee ball, in putting a ball on a tee or having somebody throw, but now you're incorporating the vision that you're actually going to use. And what will happen is, if you start to make this box in your mind at 20 feet, where we know that's where you're going to decide on where you're going to swing and what balls you're going to swing at, all of a sudden now when it comes game time, and that's all you've been doing, you've been focusing in on this little square that you've drawn out or you've taped out into a wall 20 feet away. Then when it comes game time, if a ball is pitched to you and it's not in that imaginary square that you've worked on over and over and over again, you're not going to swing at that pitch. And that's how you develop a good eye. By putting a ball on a tee, you're not developing any kind of visual sense of what pitches I'm going to swing at and what pitches I'm not going to swing at, because that ball on the tee is already past the time that you're making a decision on when to swing. So if you do that drill, and do 45 minutes of swings doing that drill, that's going to be better for you visually and give you the same experience of swinging and practicing your swing than doing it on a tee.
And the tee work is necessary for the swing, but not for the visual aspect of it. Not for the tracking the ball, not for your timing, not for the rhythm, of actually hitting. All that's just for your mechanics of your swing. Whatever that mechanic may be, what you do that gets you ready. But ultimately, you got to see the ball.
So now that we understand dynamic visual acuity, before we started filming, you had me take a test. Can you explain to us what that was all about?
Yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to test dynamic visual acuity. So we were talking about in the 50s, they'd use a record player spinning around and they would let a ball player look at it and see at what speed they were able to tell what the record label said. So what we've come up with is a test on the video screen that you can do on TV or a video monitor on your computer to test dynamic visual acuity. And what we've done is we've taken optotypes. And what an optotype is a picture that we use for children so that they can tell us and we can get a feel for what their vision is. And these optotypes look very similar. So a square looks a little similar to a star, which looks similar to an apple, which looks similar to a house, which looks similar to a circle. So what we do is we kind of flip those at a certain speed and allow people to tell us what it was. So we'd flip it and say, is that a circle or is that a square? And then what we do is we speed up the flip so that we get more and more accurate view of how good their dynamic visual acuity is. So when we're flipping it slow, when we did testing on just normal patients and baseball players, everybody can see what it is and say that's a square when we flip it slow. When we increase the speed of the flipping, then the normal people that we tested this on would go, oh, I couldn't tell if that was a circle, square, or star.
Which happened to me.
Which happened to you. And then when we take it to baseball players and we do the same thing, they can start determining what it is, a circle, a square, a star, at faster and faster speeds. Till finally, it's so fast that their human eye can't read it. And one of the things that we try to do with those optotypes to kind of do some training with baseball players is, and you can do this at home, you can do a 2 by 2 inch cutout, put one of these pictures, and then stand 60 feet away from the person that you're working with, and that's the distance between the pitcher's mound and the batter's box, and just do some flipping and ask that person who's standing 60 feet away, what do you see? Is this a square, a circle, a star? And you keep doing that at faster and faster rates so that they start training themselves to be able to look at spins on the ball and use their dynamic visual acuity. What's happening a lot now is people are marketing different ways to train your dynamic visual acuity. The problem with the trainers that I see is it's like either a computer program or like Jason was saying, there's other things that are being marketed to him, and I'll let him talk about that. That the only way that that's really going to help you is if you're 2 hours a day sitting in front of a computer pushing buttons.
Which who really wants to do that?
Yeah. Right, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, basically you just gotta hit this ball, so you want to use your eyes to hit that thing. So as you're going on and they're marketing, like you said, with a computer. Well, when do we take our computers everywhere? I mean,
exactly.
You got to have access to something. Well, can I get on the internet? Or is there an outlet? Is there a plug?
Well, you're going to spend, the athletes that I know, and when I was an athlete, there's no way that I'm going to spend 2 hours in front of a computer.
No chance.
You guys want to be outside. You want to be
playing our sport.
You're at the field or you're at the stadium or wherever you're at for so long that you don't want to get tied down to a certain thing. And if you are, guys are usually playing a video game or something, which does, in actuality, does help. Hand-eye coordination, and a lot of players these days are starting to get into that. And it seems, kind of juvenile, you know, if you think about it, but, you know, kids want to play the video game to help with their eyesight and different things with their hand and eyes and picking up spin and different things like that. So, you know, you don't want to spend an overload on that when you, like you said, you want to be outside. You want to put that, what you've learned and how you're working toward, you know, something on the field to get something out of it. And that's another thing with when you're on the field, and when it came down to me playing, if I'm looking at a computer screen for a long time, or if I'm focusing on something for a long time, my eyes would get dry. So then all of a sudden I feel tired, my eyes are, you know, starting to burn a little bit. Next thing you know, I gotta look for some eye drops somewhere or something as I'm doing it. And when I was catching dust, you know, balls in the dirt, my eyes getting dry, and the wind and different aspects, foul tips and stuff like that. My eyes tend to get dry, and as I'm
probably more than the other players.
Oh, yeah,
right?
without a doubt. Being so close to you know, to the dirt and the elements and the wind and, you know, dust, different things coming up.
So what do you do with that? I mean, is there anything that you use to help that, or how
Well,
do you deal with that?
especially since the surgery, Dr. Toyos, he gave me Sustain. He said, "Hey, this stuff's going to work," and the Sustain Ultra seems to work best for me.
Really?
There's like a 3 or 4 second rule that players tend to use to not try to get too focused on things, especially when you're hitting. And you'll see this a lot throughout a game. You know, some of the fans will start booing or things when a guy keeps stepping out or things. And that's basically what a pitcher and a catcher and a batter are trying to disrupt. You know, the pitcher's, you know, his rhythm out there, or the batter's, you know, rhythm and timing at the plate. But a lot of times you get so focused on, you know, whether you're looking at the bill of a cap or a face or a release point or something, that you need to blink sometime in there. So every 3 to 4 seconds you want to blink, but there is that, you know, boom, there's that 1/10 of a second there that your eyes have to refocus. So right when the pitcher's getting ready to release the ball, you don't want to be blinking, and then you may miss the pitch halfway, you know, to the plate or something. So
And that's what you use Sustain to.
that's what I use Sustain for, to, you know, just keeps the eye lubricated, especially windy conditions, you know, playing all over the country. A lot of allergies in a lot of these, you know, ballparks, and allergy season and dust and pollen and stuff, and it makes it a lot more difficult when you obviously can't focus, you know, your eyes are squinting and everything. You need that lubrication for a sustained amount of time so that you're not constantly every half inning coming in, boom, oh, where's my eye drops, boom, oh, I'm out of eye drops, oh, where's the trainer, I need the clubhouse guy, I need somebody, you know, I mean, make sure, you know, it kind of becomes a hassle, you know, it's another thing. Okay, I got my glove, my bat, okay, where's my eye drops? You know, I mean, you need something that you know is going to be there and it's going to work and it's going to last for a sustained amount of time, so that it's just second nature. Is what it comes down to. I mean, you got to feel comfortable with your eyes and able to see what you can if you're going to perform well.
And you were making the comment about him catching being worse than other players, and it is worse because what happens when you're doing a task like if you're catching or watching TV, or he was mentioning working on the computer, your blink rate tends to be less. So your eyes are open longer in between blinks, and the eyes tend to dry out. So for a catcher catching a whole game where they have to be ready for a pitch to come in, they're not blinking as much, so his eyes were drying out as the game goes on. What's very interesting now, there's recently an all-star player that his batting average was really down this year, and what they found was that he was blinking too much because his eyes were so dry that he was blinking, that he was missing pitches. So he went to his eye doctor, and they found out, you know, he had some dry eye, and they prescribed him a drop. When Jason told me about the 4-second rule, I started to think about this, and then we started to do some experiments in our clinic where we take normal people and figured out how long they can keep their eyes open before an image 60 feet away would blur out on them. So what we did is we took a letter and we wrote a letter on a baseball. We took it 60 feet away, and then we would tell somebody, okay, look at that letter, and when it starts to blur out and the image isn't as clear as it was before, blink. And it's funny that it was 4 seconds on average when people had to blink, and they started to lose that vision. So then we took that one step further. What I prescribe to patients to take for an artificial tear is Sustain Ultra. So what we did is we started putting Sustain Ultra in these patients that we were doing this experiment on, and they could keep their eyes open instead of just 4 seconds, they keep their eyes open for 17 seconds.
Yet still have the lubrication without it becoming dry.
Without it becoming dry, and then the image was clear as could be for 17 seconds as opposed to 4 seconds. And what an advantage that would be for somebody to get up to the plate and not have to blink at 4 seconds. And then the pitcher can't disrupt the rhythm. The other thing in talking to baseball players, so then we took this research and we were putting it out in the field, talking to baseball players and giving them this drop, and Jason taking this drop to other players on his team. What we found is players were stating that late in the game, when they would feel like their eyes were tired and they weren't seeing as well, once they just put this drop of Sustain Ultra, it allowed them in the later innings to see just as well as they were seeing in the earlier innings, which on a science basis makes sense. If you're blinking less and your eye is drying out, as the game wears on, you're going to start to get kind of little scratches on the front surface of the eye. These are microscopic scratches because the eye is so dry. So what I tell people is think of it as, say you had your windshield wiper going and it wasn't raining and it was a dry day, that windshield wiper would start to scratch the front surface and the windshield. The same with the eye. Your eye is like your lid is like the windshield wiper. It's constantly going down and up, down and up. Now, if there's no lubrication there and it keeps going down and up, it's going to scratch that front surface. So if you're doing 2.5 hours of that in a baseball game, by the time it's the 9th inning and you're up to bat, you've got these micro scratches on the front part of your eye, and all of a sudden your vision is blurred out. So if you want to correct that and be able to hit as well in the first inning as you do in the 9th inning, and you want to be able to look at a picture and concentrate on that pitch without having to blink every 4 seconds, you use Sustain Ultra. What's also good about using that drop, and this is what we found in the research that we did, is just one drop of Sustain Ultra will keep you going for 3 hours without having to put another drop. So one of the things that Jason was saying,
which is what he said, instead of having to constantly look in the bag or ask, where's my eye drops?
Exactly.
That puts that all together.
And so you put that one drop to start the game, and then that'll last you that 3 hours, and then you're not having any problems. And weren't you saying earlier that you were with the drops?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I mean, the drops became a necessity, and constantly looking for, small vials and, running out, in between at-bats and, before I could even finish innings, I was having trouble, time, it's just slowing down the game. And
that should be the last thing on your mind.
That should be the last thing on your mind, especially, not just for catchers either. I mean, you can look at it from a pitcher standpoint and how they focus in on getting a pitch, getting a sign, and then coming set, and then going through their motion, because 9 out of 10 pitchers don't follow the glove or their target the whole time that they're throwing. If they're holding on a runner, they're looking at the runner, and then they have to quickly focus, boom, to get back. So is it a quick blink? How's the focus? Or am I not blinking? If I don't have to blink, then I can go from one spot to the next. Usually you have to blink when you're trying to focus between two separate objects. That's a big play from the pitcher's standpoint of where they can feel confident that they're picking it up. Because even though it's a lot of feel and muscle memory, you can't just throw a baseball or hit a baseball or make a free throw or throw a football, whatever athletic sport you're in, without actually seeing where you're throwing it, hitting it, where you're moving to. So the Sustain obviously is going to allow you to keep your eye open and feel good, and without being the tired burning sensation when your eyes get dry, to actually complete what you're trying to do.
And I think a lot of athletes are under the impression that it's muscle memory rather than muscle memory and vision that lead to them performing the way they do. Is that correct?
That is correct. When I talk to athletes all the time, they say, well, the reason why I can make a free throw is I've shot this free throw so many times that if I close my eyes, I'll be able to make the free throw. So I heard that so often, And I thought it was so incorrect being an eye doctor that I wanted to prove that. So I went to a local college and I took college basketball players and I made them shoot free throws, and I recorded what percentage of free throws that they made. Then they could practice their free throws as many times as they wanted. Then I put them at the free throw line, and at the spot that they wanted to be at, they could look at the spot where they're going to be. And I said, okay, now you can do everything that you want. We've got the ball. Close your eye and shoot free throws. And none of them had a percentage that they would ever brag about. You know, you had people making about 10% of shots, 15% of the shots, 20% of shots, but not the levels that they were shooting before.
When they had their eyes open.
When they had their eyes open. And it seems like it's such an easy thing, but people don't realize it until you take that power away. We had there's always these basketball players that are poor free throw shooters, and one of the things that I first look at is, and this goes back to we're talking about eye dominance and things like that. One of the things that I look at a free throw shooter is making sure that they're using both eyes to use depth perception to be able to see how far the rim is. And what you find, some of the poorest free throw shooters, the reason why they're shooting the free throw so poor is that they're blocking one of their eyes, so that they're only using one eye, and even though it may be their dominant eye, they've kind of messed up their depth perception, so it's going to be very difficult for them to make that shot. What's very interesting is I've had players that have a very strong dominant eye and have really poor vision in their non-dominant eye. If you have somebody with great vision in one eye and very poor vision in the other, what happens is at distances that are 15 feet and beyond, they can just use one eye to tell depth perception using what's called monocular clues. But at any distance shorter than 15 feet, you need both eyes to tell depth perception. So I've had these players that have had great vision in one eye, poor vision in the other, that were great outside shooters shooting three-pointers, but when they shot layups, they would miss layups, and you go, what's going on here? And it's that they're not using both eyes. So Jason and I talk about this all the time about, you know, pitchers who think that they don't need to look at the target when they're throwing the ball, that they can basically just close their eyes and hit the catcher's mitt and rely on their muscle memory.
Here's your muscle memory right here, where you know, it's kind of a drill when a pitcher's starting to struggle a little bit with his control, maybe mechanically or whatever, and they'll throw a pitch and, you know, I don't feel right. And you're like, okay, well, now close your eyes and do the exact same thing and just let it go. Now, obviously, it's in the bullpen and not on the field or anything. You make sure that everybody's safe because it's a controlled environment. You know, I don't want you to do it with people around, and see where they throw it. I mean, it's a complete lack of trust is what it comes down to. And so then all of a sudden they can focus with their eyes, and now they start or stop focusing so much on mechanics, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, that might be the problem. You may not be turning your head around in time to pick up where you're throwing the ball. Forget about what took you from, you know, point A to point B. When you're getting ready to release the ball, sometimes the feel is there, but you're not trusting, you're not allowing your eyes to trust where you're throwing it. So that's part of, you know, being able to see, obviously, and that muscle memory is a factor, but that the eyes in you know, in the end are always the major factor in actually where you're releasing it, throwing it, you know, for pitchers and for catchers, because we can see that, you know, as catchers, being able to see, okay, are they actually picking me up? Am I making eye contact, or can I see their eyes before they're actually releasing the ball? And so that's a good, you know, that's a good step, that's a good checkpoint to check off to, you know, as you're going throughout a game and as you're a catcher and watching a pitcher, and if they start to get a little wild or get out of focus, well, let's take a look at, you know, some minimal things here.
And it's really, that brings up another point. I was reading this research article with the Japanese in terms of during a game, what we do visually in the beginning of the game as opposed to what we do visually at the end of the game.
As a player?
As a player. And exhaustion does come into a factor in terms of not just the mechanics start to get sloppy, but your visual picking up of targets gets sloppy. You've always seen this in a game where somebody's having a great game, and then it's a long game, and then about the 7th, 8th inning, 9th inning, they start to make mistakes that you're going, why'd they make those mistakes? And if you look back, they tested, the Japanese study, they tested athletes and then tested them with their visual acuity and dynamic visual acuity and picking up targets in the beginning of the experiment. And then they made them go through a bunch of physical exercises and that got them a little bit exhausted. And then all of a sudden their eyes aren't focused in where they're supposed to throw a baseball. And now they can't pick up a spin of a baseball as well as they could
so their eyes
before.
are literally fatigued.
And their eyes are fatigued.
So we talked about some drills that hitters can do, but is there any drills that pitchers can do to improve their visual accuracy?
Oh, without a doubt. When we were talking about the example before about a pitcher trying to pitch with their eyes closed and how the disastrous results that you get from that, one of the drills that we've had players do, and I've had some coaches do with their pitchers, is same thing, putting something up on the wall 60 feet away, or for whatever distance it is from the pitcher's mound to the catcher's plate in Little League or whatever division that they're playing, and putting up something on the wall that has numbers. So it'll be a row of numbers going 1 through 5, and then 6 through 10, and then so on. And what the pitcher will do is the coach will say, okay, I want you to hit number 5. So what it trains, and what the pitcher is supposed to do is that's the number that they're going to pick up on the wall with their vision, and that's what they're going to aim for. And what it does is it shows them that there's a correlation between pitching the ball and aiming for a particular spot and hitting that spot. So a lot of times then that translates in the game that the catcher will put his glove in a certain spot and want the pitcher to hit that spot. And then that trains them on how to do that so that they can do it better in the game.
And they most definitely wouldn't be able to hit a specific number that's on a wall with their eyes closed. With their eyes closed,
no. And they wouldn't be able to do it if they're not focused on that particular target when they're shooting. And it goes back to the free throws. If you're not looking at the rim when you're shooting a free throw, you're not going to hit the rim. If you're not looking at a particular spot when you're throwing a pitch, you're not going to hit that spot.